Hello everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and in this video we're going to talk about CSS. We're going to use some CSS to style our web page and make it a little bit interesting. So let's dig into it. First, let's talk about the different ways in which we can apply CSS styles to our website. The first way is by using something called inline styling. Inline styling, what that means is that we are applying a style specifically and directly to one element at a time. Okay, so this can be a way for us to pick exactly what style we want to apply to each element, but it's probably not the most efficient way. We'll talk about better ways to do that, but let's dig into inline styling for now. First, let's go ahead and create an H1 element on our page. Now remember, all of the elements that we create that we want to be displayed on the page go inside of the body. So I'm going to create a new H1, and I'm going to write, well, just looking forward at the assignment, we're going to make an assignment about famous quotes, or we're making a website about famous quotes. So I'm just going to write famous quotes so that we have kind of a title for our web page. Now, this is kind of boring, right? It doesn't look very nice. It's a white background with this black Times New Roman text. It's not great. So let's talk about how we can change that. Well, we can apply a new style to this just like we can apply attributes to any other element. Whenever we want to apply an attribute, we do it inside of the open tag. So inside this H1, after H1, but before the close angle bracket, I'm going to type style equals, and then inside here, I can apply a specific style to this thing, whatever element it is that we're attached to. For example, right now, it's this H1. So let's say I want to change the color. So I'm going to change the color to, ooh, and look, we get a bunch of cool colors, and we get a color picker on which we can kind of choose the color we want. Let's go with a red. Sure, there's the hex value. Okay, we'll go with that. And now notice that my text just changed color right there. Super easy. So using the style attribute, we can change the color of our text to a specific value. Now, that's not the only thing we can change. We can change all kinds of stuff. But this is just an example of how we can change one thing on one specific element. The thing is, if we were to create another H1, notice that this other H1 goes back to this black font color. The reason why is because this style only applies to this specific H1 here. Okay? So that's one way to apply some style code. The other way to apply some style code is to create a style element inside of our head section. So up here we have the head, right? So let's go ahead and create a style element. So inside the head, I'm going to create style. Okay, so this style section now is where we can put some CSS code that will apply to every element on our page. So I'm going to indent. Now the reason why we're indenting is because we want to make it a little bit easier to read what's inside of each element. For example, this meta and this title element are inside the head section as well. I'm going to go ahead and indent those so it's easier to see that they're inside the head. Okay? It's just a style thing. It's going to help your code's readability. All right, so we're going to indent inside this style element. Let's say we want to change all of our, let's change the background color. So the way we can do that is we can target the body element and change the background color of the body. So I'm going to type body. Then I'm going to use these well, I call them squirrely brackets. I think they're called braces, or actually I think they're called French braces. I'm not sure, but I call them squirrely brackets. So we're going to use these squirrely brackets here. And anything in between these squirrely brackets is going to change the way our body is styled, right? And the body applies to the entire page. So if we were to do something like background hyphen color, and let's set it to, I don't know, let's try this aqua. Okay. Ooh, that's really gross and weird looking, but it's a color. So we can apply different colors. Now there are a lot of named colors. Next week we're going to get into color more specifically. We're going to talk about how to apply colors even better. But for now, let's change this to, I don't know, let's say gray. Okay, sure, something. But anyway, that's how we can apply a style to the entire web page at once. We can also change the font of all of the text on our web page at once if we'd like. But for now, we'll just stick with this. This is fine. All right, let's create some paragraph elements. I'm going to create one. Let's see. All right, let's do this. I'm going to create some paragraph elements and use those to hold some quotes. All right. Let's find some famous quotes online. Actually, you know what? We're going to do some Star Wars quotes. Why not? I love Star Wars. It's fun. Let's do some Star Wars quotes. So let's see. Try or do or do not, there is no try. That's what it is. Do not, there is no try. And that was said by my main man, Yoda. Let me go ahead and copy this. And let's take the quotes out because, actually, let's just change all of this and we'll say Yoda. Okay? Try or try not, there is, or do not, there is no try. All right. And I'm actually going to change this famous quotes. I'm going to change the font for the entire web page. Font, family, I'm going to change it to Arial. Let's do, actually we're going to go impact. I like the impact font for this. Okay, good. And I'm going to change this, the famous quotes to a yellow color for this H1. So let's go with, let's get the color picker to come back up. Let's do a nice yellow, like a Star Wars yellow. Okay, good. I'm going to change the background color to black. Beautiful. And I will change the paragraph color. So all of my paragraphs are going to have a white color. Okay, there we go. So famous quotes, do or do not, there is no try. Let's add some more paragraph elements. So copy, paste, paste. So I'm going to do 3 quotes. Sounds good to me. Let's say, no, I am your father. And that was said by Darth Vader. Okay, and then let's do another one. Let's say, Misa, Sith Lord, said by Jar Jar Binks. Because Jar Jar Binks is the hidden Sith Lord. He is pulling the strings in the background. We all know that, right? That's obvious. We've known that forever. Okay, so now we have a website. We're changing the style. We're making some things look kind of different, kind of nice. We can actually increase the size or change the size. I don't know if I quite like the impact font, but that's fine. Whatever. Actually, I don't know why that didn't. We also want to make sure we have semicolons at the end of our font. Let's just go with that. We want a semicolon at the end of all of our CSS lines, just to make sure that the compiler knows that this is the end of that line. All right, so now we have 3 different quotes, but there's not really a way to separate these quotes from each other. So we're going to use something called a div. A div is a really, really handy element which will allow us to organize our code into separate boxes, into separate containers. Think of a div as a separate container that we can put some elements inside. Okay, so I'm going to create a div right here. And inside this div, I'm going to put this first quote. So these 2 paragraphs, I'll put those inside the div. And I'm going to indent them so it's easy to see that they're inside of that div. Now, what we can do is we can style our div to have, let's say, a border. Let's put a border around this div. So border, and we'll say 1 pixel solid, and we're going to give it a yellow border. Okay, so now we have a nice border around this, this div. There's also some issues here with some padding. Let's add some padding so that we get a little bit of room in between the text and the line. Padding is an element that, or is a CSS property that will give us a little bit of extra space around something. We'll say 10 pixels of padding. There we go. That looks nice. Now, because we've already written this for the div, we could actually create 2 more divs, put this text inside of those divs, and the same styling will apply. So let's do that. Div, let's move our paragraphs into that div, and let's do that. And then div, let's move our paragraphs up into that div, and let's do that. So now all 3 of our quotes have the same styling applied to them. We only had to write the style code once. Good times. All right, let's say, however, let's say I want this middle div to not have a solid border. Let's say I want this middle div to have a dashed border. Well, if I change it here, it changes it for all of them. I don't want to change it for all of them. I only want to change it for 1. So I guess I could do that here in the using inline style. But what if it was something I wanted to use for multiple things? I don't want to rewrite that code over and over again. So in that case, what I can do is I can create something called a class. And a class is a special set. It's basically a set of CSS code that we can apply to any element we want. So I'm going to create a class, and I'll call it dashed. We create classes by putting a period in front of the name. And we can name it whatever we want as long as it's only 1 word in the name. We don't want to do multiple words. So any spaces in here is going to throw it off. So we want to just do single word names with a period. And then I can say, let's say border 1 pixel dashed, and I'm going to make this white. And I'll give it some padding of 10 pixels as well. Now, this isn't going to apply to anything until I actually apply it to an element. So I want to style this middle div here differently. So I will say class equals, and that class is going to be dashed without the period. When I do that, now it's going to apply that style directly to that middle div. The other thing we can do, let's give us some space. Let's get some space underneath. So let's say, so padding is the space inside of an element. Margin is the space outside. So we can say we want some margin on the bottom of our div. So let's say margin bottom, and we'll give it 10 pixels as well. So now we have a little bit of margin underneath. And so now all of our divs are going to have a little bit of margin so that we have, so it's kind of separated a bit. Okay, perfect. So this is exactly kind of what we're looking for. We have our 3 quotes. We have some inline styling. We're applying a class to one of the quotes. We've got our 3 Star Wars quotes created here. This is pretty good. Now, CSS is really powerful. There's a lot you can do. Please use the resources available to you. One good resource is W3 Schools. Let me just pull this up real quick. W3 Schools. It's a fantastic website that you can use to learn all kinds of stuff. And CSS is kind of a big topic. There's a lot of things here, right? So we can learn all kinds of new things using this website, CSS icons. We can learn how to create borders like we just did. So we have dotted, dashed, we looked at solid. So there's all kinds of extra things we can do with these CSS properties. And there's no way I could teach you all of the CSS properties that we could use in one lesson. So take a look at this website and see what options you have available to you. See what you can do with CSS. Alrighty. Hopefully you had fun building this website, and I will see you next time. Thanks for paying attention.